Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that he's guilty, Mr. Foreperson?
That's correct.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Yes.
Blake Lively just broke down in court as the judge delivered a brutal verdict that shattered her public image in seconds. With millions in damages and a looming criminal referral, the courtroom went silent. The judge slammed her actions as calculated deception under the guise of brand management and made sure everyone heard it. Blake Lively's perfectly filtered Instagram life just crashed face first into a courtroom floor. No soft lighting, no curated captions, no Betty Boos in hand. Just a judge, a verdict, and a woman who thought her Hollywood brand could cover up a legal wildfire. On June 6, 2025, Judge Miriam Calloway dropped the kind of ruling that doesn't just sting, it ends careers. The case, Carly Benson versus Blake Lively and Preserve Inc. The charge, workplace abuse, cover-ups, and let's not forget, industrial strength manipulation. The vibe, total courtroom chaos. And Blake, she didn't walk in like the strong, empowered businesswoman from her People magazine puff pieces. She walked in and left screaming, literally screamed uncontrollably. Because when Judge Calloway looked her dead in the eye and called her the mastermind behind a coordinated abuse cover-up, the fantasy bubble finally popped. And let's talk about money. Because this wasn't just a slap on the wrist. This was an $11.4 million grenade. 8 figures, Blake. 8 million in damages for workplace abuse, and an extra cherry on top, a federal referral for obstruction of justice. That's right. Record tampering, shell company laundering, all wrapped in that vintage, preserved ribbon she used to sell overpriced jam with. Now, here's the part that should honestly be taught in law school under how to destroy your own defense. A 42-second surveillance clip. Yep, just 42 seconds. That's all it took to implode the entire Blake Lively PR machine. Her team accidentally submitted it as part of a routine evidence batch. Love that for them. And what did this clip show? Just our sweet, wholesome Blake mid-screech, hurling a wine glass across the office like she's auditioning for Real Housewives of Hell. The camera catches the glass flying, a scream, and then blood, actual blood, on the office floor. So, yeah, not exactly clean girl aesthetic. When the footage played, Blake stood up and yelled, "It's fake! It's all fake!" Girl, the judge called it unmistakably authentic and said it was the clearest evidence submitted in the entire hearing. Preserve's ex-security chief even backed up the timestamps, January 13th, 2016, in case she wants to deny it again. The glass didn't lie, but Blake sure did. Her lawyers tried their best to get it tossed, claiming it was unauthorized surveillance. Nice try. Too bad the forensic review showed no tampering, no edits, and zero sympathy from the bench. And the fallout? Swift and savage. Within 24 hours of that video making the rounds online, Blake Brown's stock affiliate took a 13-point nosedive. Hashtag Glassgate. Seriously, Twitter hadn't had this much fun since the Don't Worry Darling press tour. But let's talk about the real MVP here. The woman who brought this empire down brick by brick, Carly Benson. She wasn't just some disgruntled ex-employee. She was the assistant Blake tried to erase and ended up turning into a courtroom nuke. Carly testified that during a meltdown over candle inventory, yes, candles, Blake launched a wine glass across the room. It shattered against Carly's upper shoulder. Blood, 9 stitches, deep tissue trauma. And guess who helped her? Not HR, not Blake. 2 unpaid interns. Interns called the ride to the ER while the executive team scrolled Instagram upstairs. And just when you thought Blake might have, sent a text, apologized, nope. Carly's resignation memo from 2016 called Blake A boss who weaponized charm and used silence like a scalpel. Let that sink in. Imagine being so fake, your silence is more damaging than your words. Now here's where it gets criminal, literally. Carly's ER report had Blake's name in it, but poof, mysteriously gone. Who deleted it? Not a nurse, not a doctor, a contractor working for Jones Works, Blake's very own PR firm. Yes, because when you think of people qualified to edit medical files, you think of a crisis manager in a WeWork hoodie. That deletion triggered an entirely new layer to this case: obstruction. PR can spin headlines, but last time we checked, it shouldn't have admin access to hospital records. And what did Blake do when Carly emailed her for acknowledgement? Nothing. Zilch. Not even a hope you're okay emoji. The same woman who posts Bible verses under photos of frosted cupcakes couldn't bring herself to reply to an injured assistant with so much as a period. So no, Carly didn't just walk away. She launched a lawsuit that set Blake's entire empire on fire. She didn't just quit Preserve, she preserved every receipt. And now, the world's reading them. You really have to appreciate the irony. Blake Lively spent years branding herself as the untouchable girl boss. Mornings in designer robes, afternoons making artisanal syrup, evenings throwing inspirational quotes at her 40 million followers. And behind the scenes, a war room of crisis emails, silence tactics, and flying glassware. If you wrote this into a Netflix show, the execs would say, too unrealistic. Yet here we are. And the best part? Blake thought she could suppress all of this. Thought her brand deals, her baby-faced red carpet appearances, her curated Pinterest mom image could block out legal reality. But this time, there were no filters, no fluffy People magazine write-ups. Just a judge, a surveillance video, a bleeding assistant, and a verdict that slapped harder than anything Blake ever posted in her motivational stories. So yes, Blake Lively broke down. Of course she did. You would too if your designer fairy tale just got sucker punched by a USB stick your own lawyers submitted. So after the surveillance footage basically turned Blake Lively into the world's most glamorized workplace hazard, you'd think the judge would take it easy. Nope, not even close. Judge Miriam Calloway delivered a verdict so severe, Blake probably wishes she'd just stuck to making jam and posing in aprons. The courtroom didn't just get quiet, it went nuclear. Calloway didn't sugarcoat a damn word. She said on the record that Blake deliberately suppressed workplace injury records and attempted to tamper with medical documents via third-party access. That's not just misconduct, that's soap opera villain energy. She wasn't running a business, she was running a cover-up in heels. Let's talk numbers. The judgment wasn't a cute warning or a legal slap on the wrist. It was a full-blown courtroom carpet bombing. $8 million for emotional and physical damages. You know, for things like stitches, trauma, and being left to bleed on a break room floor while your boss schedules a photo shoot. Then came the bonus round, $3.4 million in punitive damages, because apparently, the court decided that if Blake was going to act like the villain, she might as well pay like one. But wait, the best part? A federal referral to the Southern District of New York. That's right, this wasn't just about bad behavior anymore. This was about potential obstruction of justice. As in, you may want to stop redecorating your kitchen, Blake, because orange jumpsuits don't go with your Whole Foods aesthetic. Judge Calloway even said it out loud. Blake's behavior was calculated deception under the guise of brand management. That's a fancy way of saying, you thought you could act like a monster behind the scenes and slap a filter on it. And if that quote didn't hit hard enough, how about this one? Had this been handled with decency, there'd be no trial. But PR warfare was chosen over human decency. Honestly, this judge didn't just deliver a ruling. She wrote a eulogy for Blake's entire fake girl boss empire. Legal analysts, who usually sound like robots on sedatives, even said this was The most damning celebrity employer ruling since the Ellen DeGeneres staff expose, but with forensic evidence. You know it's bad when you get compared to Ellen and still come off worse. Now, let's pivot to the most Blake Lively thing ever. Money so dirty it practically screams. Cover up! Financial audits didn't just find red flags. They found a giant blinking siren with a neon sign that read, "This way to the hush money." $228,000 in consulting. Payments were traced to a company called CB Holdings. Yeah, founded just 2 weeks after Carly's ER visit. You cannot make this up. The initials CB? They match Carly Benson's name exactly. Coincidence? Blake would love for you to think so. Except Carly denied any connection, and surprise, none of the payments had contracts, logs, or any record of actual consulting work. But the plot thickens like one of Blake's fake wellness smoothies. Logs showed that CB Holdings and 2 other mystery companies were created using an IP address tied directly to the Jones Works crisis team. That's right, the same people trying to spin this disaster like it's just another minor PR hiccup accidentally left their fingerprints on a financial crime scene. And the texts? Blake's texts deserve a whole exhibit. One of them literally read, "We control the narrative before anyone defines it for us." Congratulations, Blake. You just defined conspiracy in one sentence. Another gem from her internal team contained Carly's story, followed by, "No need to escalate if PR buries it." You know what that sounds like? Not branding, not strategy. That's the sound of a desperate celebrity trying to mop up blood with Instagram posts. And speaking of PR teams turned accomplices, let's welcome the next witness in this burning circus, Jennifer Ale. She used to be the head of crisis communications at Jones Works. Keyword, used to, because Jennifer showed up in court and lit the entire castle on fire. She testified that Blake personally ordered the suppression of multiple HR complaints. Not one, not two, multiple. These weren't "someone took my lunch from the fridge" complaints. These were safety issues, intimidation, and in Carly's case, actual physical assault. Jennifer told the court Blake's priority was clear: less damage control, more damage denial. And then came the most chilling part. Jennifer revealed that Blake's team pulled private mental health records from employees. Read that again. Medical records. These weren't related to the case. They were pulled, dissected, and used to discredit potential whistleblowers. There's unethical, and then there's reading someone's diagnosis so you can craft a narrative about why they're crazy. Unethical. One of Jennifer's emails submitted under subpoena literally read, "If Carly flips, we flip it back on her." Gaslight mode on. Gaslight mode on. Imagine being so evil, your PR team writes strategy emails like it's a supervillain movie pitch. Another Blake-approved tactic. Deploying a People magazine puff piece about how she credits her mom for creative empowerment. You know, the usual soft focus distraction. Throw some flower pics at the media, pretend to cry about your childhood, and boom, who cares about the bleeding assistant in the basement? Jennifer, under oath, described all of this as digital warfare on victims. Not PR, not spin. Warfare, designed, deployed, authorized by Blake. And let's be very clear, Jennifer wasn't some bitter ex-employee looking for attention. She had the receipts, email chains, timestamps, Slack messages, internal memos. It was all entered into evidence. It wasn't a bombshell. It was a warhead. This isn't a woman caught off guard. This is a woman who had a system in place. A system of silence, manipulation, suppression, and spin. She wasn't blindsided. She was just finally exposed. And as Jennifer's final damning line echoed through the courtroom, this wasn't PR strategy. This was digital warfare on victims. You could feel it. The walls of the fake Blake Lively brand, they didn't just crack, they collapsed. So while Blake Lively was busy launching wine glasses and weaponizing puff pieces, guess who was quietly lurking in the background of this PR dumpster fire? That's right, Mr. Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds. And let's just say, the man who can sell a phone plan in a sarcastic voiceover couldn't dodge this mess, even if he turned invisible again. Emails dropped in court didn't just hint at Ryan's awareness, they practically screamed it. Blake messaged him 48 hours after Carly's injury with the now infamous line, "Handled it. PR will keep ER stuff buried. No need to escalate. Handled it." Like it was a scheduling conflict, not a bleeding assistant with 9 stitches and a deleted medical file. Legal analysts immediately asked the obvious. Did Ryan know about the injury? About the PR scrub? About the entire orchestration? Or was he just sipping aviation gin in the corner, watching his wife turn their empire into an HR horror story? Now, Ryan hasn't been named in the actual lawsuit yet, but he's reportedly on the short list for subpoenas in the financial misconduct phase, and given what we know, that subpoena might hit his inbox before his next auto-generated tweet does. And speaking of timing, let's talk about Animal Friends. Ryan's movie was originally set to release in October 2025. Then came the court drama, and suddenly it's been pushed all the way to May 2026. You know what else was pushed? Every brand that doesn't want to touch this radioactive circus with a 10-foot pole. 3 major partners quietly hit pause on their endorsements with aviation gin, citing, get this, PR sensitivities. No one wants to be associated with the guy married to the woman whose name was erased from an ER file by a PR intern. And listen, it's not just about what Ryan did or didn't do, it's about the silence. When your wife's being accused of covering up workplace abuse and deleting hospital records, and you say nothing, you don't get to play the just a bystander card. Silence isn't innocence, it's complicity dressed up in a tailored suit. Now, while all this courtroom chaos unfolded, Blake Lively decided to do what she does best, perform online like she's living in a Hallmark fever dream. And it was bizarre, absolutely unhinged. Let's start with the most deranged PR move of all time. In the middle of her abuse scandal, Blake posted photos of, wait for it, funeral flower arrangements. She even offered to help fans plan their funerals. You can't make this up. This woman went from support local artisans to I'll coordinate your casket decor in the middle of a trial. The internet obviously imploded. Backlash poured in from every corner, but Blake, being Blake, tried to double down with more self-indulgent nonsense. She reposted quotes about being generous and misunderstood, complete with captions like, "People only see what they want to believe." No, Blake. People believe what's on video. You know, like the one where you screamed and launched glass at your employee's face. And it doesn't stop there. According to the Daily Mail, Blake allegedly drafted her own coverage for People magazine. That's right. When the court heat got too intense, she wrote herself a sympathy article, complete with the line that she credits her mom for creative empowerment. Meanwhile, her former assistant needed creative empowerment just to get out of the break room alive. Even her fans started to turn. After her team posted, deleted, and reposted content 4 times in 48 hours, people on Twitter started calling her America's least relatable woman. And they weren't wrong. Who else responds to a lawsuit by alternating between flower photos and vague quotes about kindness? But the pièce de résistance, the PR flood tactic. Her team strategically buried the bad press by planting puff stories about Ryan Reynolds buying a sailing club with Hugh Jackman. Yes, because nothing says I'm totally innocent like a yacht club bromance in the middle of a court meltdown. While Carly Benson was being dragged into witness hearings and trauma therapy, Blake's PR team was pitching headlines like, "Ryan sets sail for new horizons." It was like watching a desperate magician try to pull attention away from a flaming stage by pointing at a glittery distraction. But no one bought it. Because when your brand's last defense is flower picks and yacht clubs, the illusion's dead. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, it did. Judge Calloway delivered a closing statement that didn't just shut down the courtroom, it shut down Blake's career. Word for word, the judge said, "Accountability isn't optional just because you're famous." She then followed it up with the knockout punch. This was no accident. This was a blueprint for erasure. A blueprint, not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. A blueprint. Blake Lively is now facing civil penalties, a pending federal investigation, and possible industry blacklistings. That means the red carpet might be rolled up for good. Multiple production contracts have been paused indefinitely. Betty Boo's has been yanked off the shelves by several major retailers, and perhaps most painful of all, her bestie Taylor Swift has gone completely silent. Still hasn't responded. Not a word. Not a like. Not a repost. Cold. Meanwhile, Carly Benson? She's doing what Blake never could, turning pain into something real. Carly has launched a nonprofit for corporate abuse survivors, and in just 48 hours, it raised $1.3 million. That's what happens when people believe your story, when they see you, when they know you're not hiding behind filters and fluff pieces. Anne Blake, her last words in court, captured on record, were, "This is a smear campaign. I'm the real victim." Of course she said that. Of course the woman who made her assistant bleed and tried to delete the evidence thinks she's the one who suffered. Classic Blake, always the main character, even when she's the villain. What made this trial even more surreal wasn't just the evidence, it was the sheer spectacle of it all. The courtroom felt less like a legal chamber and more like a live-streamed celebrity takedown. Every time Blake walked in, reporters jostled for a glimpse, sketch artists practically turned into paparazzi, and you could hear gasps ripple through the audience every time a new document was unsealed. Lawyers weren't just arguing legal theory, they were performing for the front row. One legal analyst even compared it to a high-stakes Broadway tragedy, where the lead actress didn't realize she was also the villain. The prosecution's tone was surgical, cold, precise, devastating. They didn't yell, they didn't rant, they dropped receipts like bombs. Meanwhile, Blake's defense team looked like they were on the verge of quitting mid-sentence. Rumors swirled that 2 associates from her legal team walked out during prep the night before the verdict, refusing to protect a client who thinks good lighting is a substitute for accountability. When a courtroom turns into an arena, only one thing matters: evidence. And in this case, it did all the shouting Blake couldn't silence. But here's the thing. When the gavel drops and the headlines stop spinning, there's no director yelling cut, no script to rewrite, no lighting team to soften the truth. There's just the wreckage, and this time, it's hers. And if you think this courtroom drama is over, think again. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next twist.